Could we make the following claim, that we have historically been able to inhabit two concepts of spaces, to surround ourselves with some sort of matter, to project our conscience in two different dimensions, that of the real world and that of dreams, and we've recently entered a world where a third dimension is possible, the virtual dimension. How is this new dimension able to model us? It has been largely debated our interfacing with the world of dreams and the real world, where dreams come from, how we give birth to them, what they mean, and how in turn we give them meaning. The same goes for the real world, our perception of reality, how it might have such different meanings for different people. Could we say this new conscience is close to the former two? The conscience of dreams and the conscience of reality. We now are able to conceptualize digital worlds with their potential to imitate reality, with their potential to imitate dreams. We are able to strive for hyper-realist perfection or completely deconstruct and rebuild something new in them. But how do we extract meaning from them, and how do we give them meaning? How do we imagine them, and what do we look for in them? Particularly, is our attraction to low poly and low fidelity worlds just based on nostalgia, or could there be something else? Is it inevitably attached to some sort of rejection of modernity with reactionary potential, or is there some sort of subversive potential here? The success of indie games has led to even big capital plunging themselves into this retromania in its infinite growth pursuits and continuous appropriation of the new, so their relevance is undeniable. So again, why? Nostalgia's comfort of a better and safer past is a possible explanation for how we feel about it. This won't be a debate about nostalgia, but there are a couple things about it worth noting. As it isn't a debate, it won't go too deep into these ideas, but just leave them as a couple of interesting floating ideas, a little inception, that might help strengthening the main point later. In fact, some of these notes are open-ended questions, so here we go. Whatever it is that makes it appealing for someone, it does so for both people that have gone through that past and remember it, and people that have never lived it. People that have never lived in the 80s and 90s can be massive fans of 2D retro gaming, but so are people that lived it. Was the past really more attractive? Does the appeal come from the historical moment itself, or from the stage in our life we were in when we lived it? Maybe a stage of less responsibilities. If it's indeed related to a stage in our life, we find here an incoherence, given that people who didn't live this stage in their lives at the same time, and people who haven't even gone through it yet, also see themselves attracted to this returnal. And why this historical moment and not another one? One could just claim people just like it, and fair enough. But would people be able to enjoy it living under different conditions, if under different contexts? Maybe there's something these people have in common, but it might not be missing an idealized past. So, as a fun exploration of subversion, let us ask, what if the destruction in itself is the source of attraction? What is it exactly that's part of the past? Could these games really exist in the past even though they're trying to emulate it? Yes, the graphics make that bridge, but could the experience in its totality exist in the time the games that inspire it were made? Lunacid, for example, designed as a homage to older From Software dungeon crawlers, but undoubtedly modernized for today's standards, with quality of life improvements. Could it have existed when the games it pays tribute to did? Like a primordial attraction to the most rudimentary scenarios, like an attraction to the beginning, rejection of the complexity and path to the perfect replica of reality. It isn't hard to find a parallel between nostalgia and an almost reactionary rejection of modernity in the classic "take me back to when things were better" discourse. But to go forward, to look into the future with hope and freely, some level of destruction is needed. Can the geometrical simplification of low poly count in these games be part of that destruction process? Like bursting through the perfect facade of high fidelity, modeled to infinity and limited by reality. But what do we want? To claim the high fidelity world or reject it? Maybe both. Adopt the rejection that will bring its downfall to then immediately seize it back to our hands. It's hard not to think about Mark Fisher when trying to rationalize all this, but maybe there's something more than the fatalism of being unable to move on from the past and lost futures. The deconstruction is most of the time at the level of detail, not at the level of the complexity of the ideas. Returning to a root also serves the purpose of breaking with a capitalist cultural megalomania where what moves us are graphics that require more powerful and expensive technology, and therefore also reinforcing class division, embracing a root but at the same time moving forward, democratizing the access, benefiting at the same time of democratization, video games themselves. And so we have the example of games like Automatonlung, where negative space and geometrical simplicity converge to create alien, sombering but beautiful scenarios. There's nothing taken away from the artistry of simplicity here. The meticulous big-scale environments with the repeated patterns and textures and geometrical shapes really get to you. Like a world built by a forgotten civilization and left to live eternally in the digital world, protected there from erosion, so long as the system stays online. That doesn't seem exactly to serve any practical purpose, except for it being a testament of architectural marvel for future generations, making who created it closer to immortality. Pseudoregalia is another such game. A game where there is a mismatch between the geometry and what it's meant to represent. Shapes and sizes are all over the place, creating this surreal polygonal world where simplicity reigns but something emotional is still drawn, and even only possible through this simplicity. There's something abnormal in the proportions and the geometric shapes. This surrealism and ambiguity in the design feeds not only into the narrative of a dream world, but also into leaving options open for the player to experiment and be creative with the moveset, as no clear path to traverse the scenarios exists. The pastel colors, the repetition of textures in the tiles, we hear the world's inhabitants trying to vocalize their incomplete thoughts about things, adding to the aura of a dream, the aura of an incomplete, distorted version of reality our mind doesn't quite remember, but tries its best to give form to. Lunacid's case is particularly interesting since it embodies this rejection manifestation in the narrative. One of the endings involves destroying everything that exists by waking up from the reality of the dream, destroying everything in the awakening. Our character also has the unique power to come back from death, dying and being reborn, away with the old and in with the new. We already know what it pays homage to. So the question is thus raised: when does the new become the old and the old become the new? There's an intriguing ambiguity, almost conflict, of having a non-conformist and even revolutionary ending, and at the same time being hard to decide if Lunacid as a whole is a work that looks enough into the future, regardless of how much of a fucking amazing of a work of art it is as it stands. Of course, reclaiming something is always the ideal path, but how reactionary could rejection be? We want the democratization of access to games, of complex technology and graphics. Nonetheless, in the present, these have more to do with experiences meant as entertainment for the masses and not as vehicle of absolute free expression of their creators. It's possible, but hard, separating both. But if the way forward is through rejecting and building again, then maybe, just maybe, it might be worth it. If capitalism is also the eternal search for growth and primitive accumulation, then returning to a simplified model in video games is renouncing to this search for eternal growth. Another question is that this can really only happen in video games. We can't exactly go back to basics when composing a song. What would that mean exactly? Video games having an intrinsic technological component have this sort of potential, contrary to other forms of creative expression. I guess that as the industry intensifies its Ouroboros-like cycle of remakes and remakes of remakes, ideal landlordism, fear of innovation and its capital potential grows and investors expect reduced risk and higher profits, it's hard to have hope on it. And while indies have brought some of that hope back, it might not be a bad idea to sit down and reflect on how, through them, we can get rid of the shackles of nostalgia and hopelessness and be confident in a future where the art we create is as unique as the individuality of our experiences is, and further away from the eternal feeding cycle of the same old works with new coats of paint for the purpose of profit safety.